Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about, there's the micro level at the state, at the board level, and there's the macro level at the state level. So let's get started. There's 4 numbers I want you to remember. John, maybe you can adjust that a little bit, please. There's 4 numbers you need to know about education in Illinois. And I'm going to make it really easy for you. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right? So number 1. Just one student out of every 10 black students can read a grade level. 10%. 1 out of 10. That's it. Said another way, 9 out of 10 kids, 9 out of 10 black kids in Illinois schools can't read at grade level. Just 2 Hispanic students out of every 10 can read at grade level. Right? The Hispanics do a little bit better than the blacks, but 2 out of 10 and 1 out of 10 for me are pretty much the same number when it comes to not being able to read. In all of Illinois schools, 3 kids out of every 10 can read at grade level. Horrible. And look at the whites here. It's supposed to be the big gap. Well, it's only 4 out of 10 can read at grade level. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Anybody that's satisfied with that, you can leave the room. Right? Sorry. But this is where we are. This is where we are. It is pathetic. So instead of focusing on reading, the math scores, by the way, are worse than the 1, 2, 3, 4 I just showed you. Similar, but worse. So instead of focusing on that, this is from my school district. I'm in Wilmette. The 4th graders just read this book. It's a book about transgenderism. And they read this in 4th grade. And if I showed you the whole book, you'd be ticked off. Because, well, it was covered last. I won't cover it in more detail. My 10th grade son, sorry, he's a junior now, he just read 2 Boys Kissing. And one can be open-minded to all this stuff, but one of the big problems I had with this book was the sexual nature. It went way too far in describing 2 boys and what they were doing. It was much more than that. So we at Wirepoints have been covering this education stuff. I've been doing this for a long time. And I'll tell you a story about my trip to Decatur. But the problem I have with all this is that things are really bad here, but it's not just that. It's that the system is covering it up. It's being covered up. And I didn't know this stuff until I did this report. John Klinger, who's here, he and I did this report. And we started going through all the data. We started going, is this true? I couldn't believe any of it was true, but it was true. So let me take you through it. So we had just done the report on and some of you have heard this, you've heard me talk. We've just done this report on Chicago, and Miss Lori Lightfoot was bragging about the record graduation rates at CPS. This was a year and a half ago, whatever it was, 84%, record levels. John and I opened up the data, and it's like, wait a minute. Only 26% of the kids can read at grade level. Only 26% of them were proficient in English language arts on the SAT. How do you get 26% to 84%? Well, we wrote that piece, and it got good national attention because it shows the hypocrisy of the whole school system. Well, Decatur WZUS wanted to have us on the show to talk about it. Well, we looked at the Decatur numbers. And when I opened up the Decatur numbers, the Illinois report card, so this is state data, it's not our data, it's state data. You open it up, and for the 3rd grade black kids in Decatur, now 3rd grade matters because if you can't read in 3rd grade, guess what? You can't do science in 5th and social, history in 7th. You can't. So we looked at 3rd grade. Now, out of every 100 black kids in Decatur, only 2 could read at grade level. 2 out of 100? I thought it was a mistake. And this is the broader detail for Decatur. Only 7 kids out of every 100 can read at grade level in Decatur. What the heck is that? I mean, is that a school system? Are we paying for that? Do parents even know? This is the latest data, so it's 3 out of 100. It went up in 2022. Now, it wasn't just Decatur, because if it was just Decatur, okay, Decatur would have a problem. So we looked around the state. Well, Decatur's white kids were at 16%. So it tells you it's across all races, right? It's not just a black problem, a minority problem. In Rockford, 7% of the black kids can read at grade level. That's a big district. Mount Vernon, it's 0%. Elgin, 11% of Hispanics. And, and it's everywhere, okay? Peoria. Now, it's not around here, it's not in some of the suburbs, we'll talk about that in a minute. But the problem is that our third graders can't read. What kind of Illinois are we going to have in 10 years when these third graders graduate? What kind of, can they be in the workforce? No. Now the problem I had was so John and I actually got in the car, we drove down to Decatur and say, is this data true? Is it correct? And they confirmed it was real, that it was correct. They didn't say no. They made the typical blaming. They said we don't have enough money, not enough black teachers. They had no curriculum. Each teacher was making up their own curriculum. So that's excuses, but nothing to justify those numbers. And it's not any better, really, when you look at some of the suburbs who you would think would have to do better. We've gotten so complacent that 50 out of 100 suddenly is a good number in Illinois. No, we should be happy. No, heck no. Glenview, it's a lot of money in Glenview. 42 out of 100 can read at grade level. In Barrington, 52 out of 100. Naperville, one of the wealthiest districts in Illinois, 63 out of 100. It's right a lot. So we did that report, and there's a lot more that we'll cover in a minute. But the Wall Street Journal saw that report, and they were shocked because they hadn't seen anything like that. So they wrote this piece called Illinois Shocking Report Card. This is the editorial board. They featured our research in their piece. They said, no one thought Illinois schools were a shining beacon in the educational landscape, but we didn't know how truly awful so many of them are. Right, so that report comes out. Now, if you care about your kids and you're the governor of your state, what should you do? You should say, holy cow, we got a problem, Houston. No, what did he do? I don't know if this, we're going to see if the video works. So, in the debate with Darren Bailey brings up the Wall Street Journal article. And so, what was Pritzker's response? Was it, we got to do better? No, let's see what he says. Let's see if I get lucky and make this work.
Okay, so many untruths that have been said. I can't even address all of them. Let's start with this. He talks about what was in the Wall Street Journal. That was provided to them by a right-wing carnival barker organization here in the state of Illinois. Of course. It's just wrong. They are wrong.
Right-wing carnival barker organization. All right, step right up. And he says it's just wrong. It's just wrong. Well, guess what? The data was his data, straight from the State Board of Education. This isn't our data. We didn't run a single number other than grab it from the state report card and report it. And he doesn't give a damn. Okay? It gets much worse than this. So here, let's talk about the cover-up. Thank you for your help. So let's talk about the cover-up. Okay? So here's the first thing that drives me bananas, and it's happening in your schools. I don't care how good your school is, they're doing it. And what they're doing is they're passing the kids to the next grade whether they're prepared or not. And again, they don't give a damn. So here you go. 2%, this is 2019 data, 2% of the black third graders were reading at grade level. Next year, 6%. Next year, 7%. 4, 5, 7, 5, they never learned how to read properly. They never learned how to read at their grade level. Why isn't somebody doing something about this? Why is it okay to move them through? And it's not just Decatur, this is my example. It's the same thing at Rockford, it's the same thing at CPS, it's the same thing in so many places. They're covering up, and you know what parents do? Parents are either not engaged, don't understand what's going on, busy just trying to make ends meet, whatever reason. And parents do, all across the board, deserve some of the blame for what goes on. But this is a system where we spend a lot of money, and we pay a lot of people lots of money. and they just push them through. And parents think, well, my kid's moving to the next grade. He or she must be ready. Okay. Let's see another trickery. Pritzker. So not only did he say we were wrong, but he also just announced when the new 22 numbers came out, the new report card came out, things weren't any better. But he didn't say that. He said we have great promise in our new numbers. He said we hit record graduation rates for our blacks and Hispanics. So there you go. 80% record graduation rate for blacks in Illinois. How many could read at grade level? 9%. What the hell is that? Hispanics, 85% grad rate. Record level. Reading proficiency, 16%. That's what he's selling. Parents only see the blue stuff, right? They only see the graduation rates. They don't see the reading rates. Because he didn't talk about them at all when he had a big announcement for an hour with a whole bunch of people. Didn't talk about this at all, just the grad rates. Okay, here's another trickery. They have 4 ratings for schools. Exemplary is the best, commendable is second, third is comprehensive, and fourth is targeted. Okay, they have these fancy names. But anyway, commendable is the second best. So we looked at places like Decatur, like Rockford. And look what they call these schools they call commendable. So here's Round Lake Elementary School in Round Lake. 4% of the kids can read at grade level. It's commendable. And you know why they do that? Why it's commendable? They look at some growth rates. And so maybe they moved from, some kids moved from really bad to less bad. It's commendable. So they're hiding behind it. Julia Lathrop Elementary School in Rockford, 2.5%, another commendable school. In Aurora East, another school, 2%. And again, this is their data. I would love to say that we ran some comprehensive scientific studies to show this. No, we didn't have to do that at all. We just opened up the thing. There's 700 schools in Illinois that are commendable with less than 20% of their kids being able to read at grade level. Oh, I love this one. As bad as all those things are that I've said, and you guys may have seen some of this, the teacher evaluations have been phenomenal. They have done a great job. So before the pandemic, on average, the state was like 97% of all teachers are excellent or proficient. Yeah, there it is, 97.2. It's a little higher now in the latest data. So look at that. They're doing a great job. Now, I don't know what to say. I don't want to pick on teachers. It's tough stuff what they do. But if you're going to have a system of accountability, you can't have something where people can't read and they can't do math. And yet, they get these great, so there's 362 districts, there's 850 districts total in Illinois. 362 of them rated themselves 100% excellent or proficient. Now, my goal is to piss you off, okay? That's my goal. Because if I can't piss you off, we're never going to change this. We're going to all just accept it, go home, and we'll sit there and accept it. So my bigger point about all this is, and I like that the Wall Street Journal picked it up. They said, and they're covering it up. Because this is bigger than just our kids failing. They're covering it up, and they do everything they can to squelch opposition, including name calling. So, this is how they react. This is another interesting thing we did recently. We looked at Chicago's schools. They have been losing population. They've lost over 100,000 students since 2000. So in the last 20 years, they've lost about 25%, 27% of their student population. Chicago's shrinking. School choice. They're leaving, right? They're moving out. So we said, wait a minute. If all these kids are leaving, but they have a moratorium on school closings, what's happening in their schools? So we looked at Uplift High School. They have a capacity of 720 students. Guess what? They only have 55 in the school. The school is empty. It's 8% utilized. They only have 54 employees. So they have one employee for every student. Yeah. So what do you think? So if you have small class sizes, right? Like this is a really small class size. What do you expect for the reading proficiency in this school of 55 kids? Soared, yeah, they soared. 100, 98? 3%. Now, man, the unions did not like when we put this stuff up. You can imagine. They didn't like it. Douglas, Baker School, 888. 44 students, 5% full. 20 employees, 0 proficiency. Yeah, these are Chicago schools. And they can't close it because there's a moratorium. Remember when Brown closed 50 schools and had all those big fights? Since then, they've been blocking the unions and their power blocking. So look, and then one out of every 3 schools in Chicago are half empty. So they're using their power to keep schools open, which means jobs, which means taxes, which means more people leaving Chicago. Now, we're going to need some help. Hey, John, we might need some help with the mic again. Oh, all right. So what do you think the Chicago Teachers Union had to say about this? Do you think they wanted to explain themselves? So you guys know Mike Flannery? He's Fox 32. I was in California on vacation, trying to have a good time. And he called me and said, "Hey Ted, I saw your report on empty schools. I'd love to talk to you about it, and I'd like to have the Chicago Teachers Union join you on the show." I said, "All right, let's see what they have to say." I like it because I felt like the data gave us power, right?
I did contact the Chicago Teachers Union. I invited them to have a representative come on and talk about these issues. When I mentioned your group, Mr. Dabrowski, wirepoints.org, a person who speaks for the union said that on the record, I could say their response was F Wirepoints. So and they didn't use F. They used the full word.
I was like, he tells me this live. I'm live. They're, CPU's got me there. I'm live, and I'm like, okay, how do I respond to that?
Right back at you.
Yeah, and I also was thinking about what my mom would think. So look at Pritzker, name calling. Teachers union, name calling. And again, whose data was it? Their data. So, people think data is boring, come on, let's get emotional, let's do stuff. The data is powerful. It is boring, but it's powerful used properly. Now, the question is, what do we do with it? All right, so here's why we need to get more aggressive, assertive. This is the history of Chicago Teachers Union strikes. I was fascinated when we found this out. Look at that. They are driving the show. They're driving the show. They have all the power. I don't know if that's me making that noise. They're driving the power, and it's really bad. Why? Because there's only 13 states that legally let their teachers strike. Illinois is one of them. Illinois is one of them. And look at the circles around us. None of our neighbors allow strikes. But we do. Okay? Another power they have, this picture is which states allow the collective bargaining to be done in secret. Right? So I loved it recently on the newspaper, I forget which district it was, the local newspaper said, the so-and-so school district has just finalized negotiations with the union, and blah, 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 and we'll find out the results. The public can find out the results once the contract is signed. So you guys get to find out what the tax hikes are effectively once it's signed. They don't negotiate in public. You don't know what they're giving away. This is a big problem. Now, I want to remove one argument. You guys, one of the things I want you guys to do, and I'll make this pitch at the end, is if we're going to win the debate in Illinois, we have to be smarter than they are. They'll always play the emotional cards. They'll say whatever it is. You see Pritzker, you got the two best examples of what they say. Our examples have to be that we have power, we're smart, we're reasoned, we're logic. One of the things you have to know is that we spend the 8th most in the country. So when they say we need more money in Decatur, or when they need more money in Rockford, you have to know that we're spending far more than virtually every state in the country. And I want you to compare to two of them. On the far right is Florida. See that? 9550 and kind of blue? They're one of the lowest spending states in the country. Guess what they have a lot of? Hispanics, blacks, minorities. They look a lot like Illinois in a percentage basis of minorities. So it's not like they have, something different than us. Indiana spends a lot less than we do. Now they don't look as minority as we are, but both of those states on the national tests do better than Illinois does across the board. Not a whole lot better, but they do the same or better on those tests. Meaning that you don't have to spend all that money that we're spending, right? I mean, we see how much money we spend, kids can't read. So know that it's not a money issue. That's one thing I want to make sure you understood. Now here's something fascinating to me, and I can't wait to write this, and we interviewed the superintendent. The two best scoring districts in Illinois are two that I've never heard of. Who knows where Aveston and Bartelso is? Somewhere near East St. Louis. And they do better than New Trier and Lake Forest and Deerfield. Look at that, look at 85 and 84%. Yeah, these are not suburban schools. Now the big question is going to be, and I can't wait to elevate this. Cost. Let's take a guess on cost. 9,000? 10? 6. Okay, 6 might be too low. So, you saw 16 was the average for Illinois. 7,500. So, I'm like, is this true? Same thing I said about Decatur. Is this true? So, driving down to, we were driving somewhere downstate. Pick up the phone and say, let's just try Bartelso. Well, we tried, didn't find the superintendent. We tried Aveston, didn't find. A little bit later, the Aveston superintendent calls back. I said, what is this? Is this true? And he goes, yes. And what he told us is that he's got a community. They're Germanic. They're deeply, I'll use the word obsessed about education. They care deeply about education. They're religious. It's a religious, so I haven't been there yet, so I can't tell you the details. But they care about learning. And he said basically they don't focus on those other things we talked about earlier. They focus on English, math, science. And it's fascinating. I can't wait to figure it out, because if they can do it, parents engaged, kids engaged, a school that's obsessed with learning, it can be done. And you don't have to keep asking for more money. What you have to do is obsess about getting our kids up to the right level. Something interesting that I didn't tell you about Florida. Florida passed a law that said if your kid can't read in 3rd grade, he or she is not going to the 4th grade. That puts a lot of pressure on a lot of people, including parents. Oh my gosh, my kid can't read. I mean, that's probably the first time, if we pass that, how many people would suddenly find out their kids can't read? It might change the dynamics. Of course, it doesn't solve everything, but it gives you a different sense of how they're approaching it. So, I've said all this. When you have a system where a governor name calls, when you're giving real data about a real problem. Crime is a real big problem, right? That's all everybody's talking about right now, Safety Act and all that. Crime's a real big problem, because you can't have a functioning society if people are shooting each other. All right? But damn it, imagine that you fix crime tomorrow. Imagine you get really tough on crime. This problem is far bigger than crime. Because if your kids can't read, you'll never have a good society. So this is bigger than safety, than crime. Crime is something we have to get under control as well. But this is deeper, and it's everywhere. This is a crime. Thank you. That's very good. That's good. It's a crime. So I say all this because when you have a governor, the name calls. when you have a Chicago teachers union that goes on the record on one of the biggest TV channels, whatever, one of the big TV channels, goes on the record and says F you about data. There's no fixing that one. When you have one that they're calling with State Board of Education, right? They're supposed to be the arbiters of all this. When the State Board of Education is saying these schools are commendable, what's the right word for that? They're what? Lying? Right? They're lying. I don't know. I hate this whole thing of lying. Everybody's lying. As if everybody's lying, then nobody knows who to believe. But this is their data. When they give teachers, blessed teachers, I like teachers. Teachers teach our kids. But when all the teachers get 100% ratings, and that's what the system says, what are we supposed to do with that? It's systemic failure. There is no fixing Illinois public schools. They're not going away. But if you really want to do something about it, every one of you here, in addition to all the advocating you're going to do at the board level, you want to be pushing school choice as much as you can. And I think you're going to see a big push. I'm personally going to be engaged in it in whatever way, and I'll tell you about that later. But we need to be activists in a way that we've never been activists before. Now, we're not the only ones that want school choice. Arizona just passed universal. Universal means for any kid. The opportunity to have an education savings account. Not a voucher, but an education savings account where $6,500 goes into an account, like a health savings account, and that money can be used for authorized spending of education. So no longer are you trapped with your school. Now you can use that $6,500 to purchase some public school, some tutoring. We're going to treat each kid like they're individuals and give parents a chance to choose what's the best services, what's the best products to teach and make their kids grow. And that's phenomenal. It sounds crazy for some, but I can tell you, you can't get any worse than 2% per year, can it? We should take every innovation, every risk we can to save those kids. So they passed that. It's expansive. We're far away from that in Illinois right now, but that has to be the ultimate goal. And what's awesome about it is that a lot of the polls now are showing, especially after COVID, right? COVID taught us that we don't control our schools, that unions do. COVID taught us that our boards aren't defending the parents. So you're seeing a lot of parents wanting school choice, education savings accounts. So I'm going to end it there. I don't know if I have time for Q&A, but if you go on that QR code, you can sign up for Wirepoints. Every day we aggregate news from both sides. We try to aggregate news that that the traditional media won't cover. And of course we include our commentary there. So more people signed up for Wirepoints would be very helpful. More people sharing Wirepoints, we're getting more people signed up would be great. But I thank you all for your engagement. 10 minutes. So I thank you for your engagement, and I would love to take any questions. I have 10 minutes. And thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Thank you for all that you do. That's amazing. My concern is the data that you give, known corruption in Illinois. How are they allowing this information? Aren't they fudging? And are they fudging the numbers? And that's the best they can get. What's your sense on how good that data is that they're getting?
So the question is, how good is the data that we have? You never know, right? This is Illinois. I don't know, but I would say that if they are fudging it, they're not doing a very good job. So they haven't fudged it yet. I think the fudging comes in when they change the testing, and suddenly we see massive increases. That's going to happen. Or it's going to be the other way, where they stop testing, right? That's the other big move, stop testing, so that then, testing is racist. And so that might be the next step. So, any other questions? Yes, sir.
It seems like this would be intimately related to the workers' rights, right? Because the teachers' union will be able to stop anything you try to change.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. So the question was, how does Amendment 1 tie into this? I imagine here, everybody knows Amendment 1. Yeah. I think Amendment 1 could be the most corrosive, horrible thing for Illinois, especially when it comes to education. Because here's what it looks like. If Amendment 1 passes, your school, your union, is worried about. Amendment 1 now includes protecting workers' economic welfare and safety, and they don't define any of it. And one of the issues they worry about safety, as was discussed earlier. Safety, what about kid safety, right? Alvin, I think, did a great job. Kid safety, school safety. Well, you know what? We better get that sex education class into kindergarten, and they negotiate that in the contract. Forget what the state says. If the union, the local union, can negotiate intercollective bargaining under the name of safety, they can negotiate whatever sex ed program they want and push it all the way down, and it's done, there will be no way to reverse it. At least it's going to be a big mess because, one, they have the constitutional right to negotiate for their safety. It's in the Constitution. And two, the amendment says no laws shall be passed that negate or diminish their rights to bargain over safety. So the legislature can't step in. You guys are going to step in and say no, and they're going to say, well, Constitution's backing us up. What a mess. I can't believe that that's on the, you know, back to your question. Here you go. They got that on the damn ballot. Our legislators put it on there. Sadly, some Republicans were there. I don't know. It's going to be a big challenge. Thank you for pointing it out, but it is going to be a big challenge. And you know, if the Chicago Teachers Union has too much power today, what do they have tomorrow if this thing passes? Big question.
Is Amendment 1, is that unconstitutional? Is there a possibility that it could be deemed unconstitutional?
There are some arguments where it's unconstitutional. There were some attempts to prove it unconstitutional before. Of course, those did not pass muster through the courts. There will be some where there's going to be suits after it passes because then some people have standing. So I won't get into the details here. One, I got to beef up on them anyway, but there's a chance that they'll be fought under that. But we'll have to see. Again, depends on the courts, right? So, yes, ma'am.
It's an anecdote, so please forgive me, but 32 years ago, I took a competency exam to teach in Illinois. Chemistry, my major, and in general education. The general education I thought was a breeze. Any high school student should be able to pass it. But yet, these college graduates could not pass it. So this is just a vicious circle. The same teachers, the people who go through these failing schools are now turning around getting degrees that don't mean anything because they themselves can't speak English. And now they're teaching our children.
Yeah, you're pointing out a scary part about the aptitude of current teachers who are coming in. And you know, there's been some data I never saw it, so I never ran it, so I'm cautious to talk about it. But the scores of the teachers from that, my understanding is they were very low. And so yeah, you run this problem where a corrupted system. I mean, if you really want to be a quality teacher, and you don't believe in some of these values that, you know, from the previous panel, what are you going to do? So we're going to lose a whole bunch of maybe really good teachers who want to be in there, who don't want to teach those values or don't want to be fired for teaching, you know, don't want to be fired for opposing it. There's another thing. I got a call from a Rockford teacher, and we're speaking on Monday. But he has been quiet. He told me, will not speak up. But then he read some of the reports we wrote, and so he called and said, "I have been told not to fail my kids, and then you get penalized if you fail them."
Yep.
I'm curious to hear this story. We'll build it out. It's going to be off the record. I understand. But anyway, yes, ma'am.
I am currently a teacher, and it is told to us that we get dragged into our principal's office if we fail too many kids, number one. Number two, I want to say the family unit is a big problem, huge for these kids and why they are failing. We have diminished the family unit, and everybody's too busy. They don't have time to sit down. They don't have time to educate. They give them their credit cards, they give them their social media, and it's a disgrace. My mother raised 6 daughters. I remember sitting at the kitchen table with her doing it every single night. I I did it with my two. I worked full-time, I went to school full-time, and my kids can read. There is a huge breakdown in the family unit. There's a breakdown in our administration. Our kids in high school run the school because they have rights now. It's a disgrace. It is an absolute disgrace. I am in it to make a difference. I put 110% to my kids every single day. I work 8, 9, 10 hours, and I bring work home with me on the weekends. I had somebody tell me one time, teaching is easy, it's 9 to 5. It is not, because I have about 8, 10, or 12 hours worth of curriculum planning I do every week for my kids.
Thank you for doing what you do. Thank you. If you and I can catch up afterwards, I'd love to hear a little bit more. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm a former public school teacher. I did the majority of my teaching in Florida. So I'm wondering, this grade level standards, that's all like Common Core standards? That's what's determining if they're reading on a grade level? Is that correct?
Well, you know, this is another complexity. So these are, states have their own plans. States have their own testing. And not only that, they seem to change them every 3 years so that we can't track data. So there's a lot of discussion about it. So the question was about, you know, what's the basis for the testing. So I can't give enough detail on that other than, you know, different states have different tests, they have different ways of slicing it and all that.
Well, I was just wondering, you know, if we, as people, you know, collective values should be trying to kind of analyze these standards. You know, if none of the kids are reaching them, they're getting left behind. Maybe we just need to reevaluate that. And then also this big push in public education for total inclusion, so these kids that are falling way behind, back in the day it would have been taken out and given extra help to get that assistance with reading, get them up to grade level in a more restricted environment. Now that's considered politically incorrect, and that's a huge problem, you know. And so yeah, I'm just sort of preaching to the choir here.
No, you know, those are all the things you said are great about more engagement. So I'm actually trying to push some, you know, like in basketball you say a full court press. When you got kids who are 1 and 2 and 3 years behind, you can't do the standard old thing, right? When we saw the numbers in Decatur each year worse and worse and worse, well, no improvement at all. It's because nobody's ever stopping and saying, you've got to fix the problem now. And there's a lot of good school choice advocates who have figured out how to get people who are 2 and 3 years behind caught up. So it's a part of a bigger discussion, but you're absolutely right. But again, I say, nobody cares. So we have to care, and it takes a little bit of a revolution among parents to do that. Yes, sir.
You had the lower grade. Do you have any data on ACT, SAT scores, what the future holds for those students going into professional careers in college, like doctors, scientists, and engineers? Because they're not going to dumb down the performance in college, because we don't want you want to go to a doctor.
Well, so sir, there are dumbing it down across universities like crazy. You know, the great inflation is crazy in universities, and the demands are getting lower. So, yeah, they're lowering the standards every. So the question was, are they going to lower the standards, and what does the high school level look like? So here's Decatur, for example, grade 11, 5%, and it's pretty much the same. It's when I said that 1 out of 10, 2 out of 10, 3 out of 10, it's the same thing for the SAT scores. Yes, sir.
Two very quick comments. I grew up on the south side of Chicago.
What? I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I grew up on the south side of Chicago, and back in 1977, my 5th grade teacher was railing about the Chicago public schools doing social promotions. So this crap has been going on for decades. Number two, back in 1980, my father pulled me and my sister out of the Chicago public schools, and he was fined him for doing that. Seriously. So
So yeah, this stuff's been going on for a long time. It's sad. Yes, Babette?
Hey Ted, so you were on the Bruce DeMont show last weekend.
I was, thank you.
You were fantastic. I was in the thread, several threads going through that. You know, it's a nationwide show, and a gentleman from Florida said, well, don't you guys have accountability for teachers in the state of Illinois? And someone came in and said, I think under Karen Lewis's reign, they got rid of that. I've been wanting to ask you that. Is that true, where the teachers no longer are really held to a performance standard or something?
Well, they are, and they do great.
Yeah.
So what's the question about that? I'm not an expert on teacher performance appraisals, so I won't venture there. That's why I treat myself like a dummy. I treat myself like any parent who might look on the Illinois report card and say, wow, we've got great teachers, our kids are just really dumb, right? It's like, so it's I can't say more than that, but it tells me everything I need to know. If the State Board of Education approves that, they're the ones that publish it, they're the ones that push the button and put it on. That's it. Yes, sir.
Ted, first, thank you very much for all that you do. We really appreciate it. And as bad as you said the Safety Act was, and it is, it's horrible, it pales in comparison to what you're pointing out here. Because the Safety Act is going to affect a smaller group of people compared to all of the kids that we have coming up behind us. That's number one. Number two, somebody back here raised the point that this is a crime. And it is, but I do prison ministry, and these low scores are ultimately going to increase the crime.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, they call it, it's a pipeline to prison. What do they call it? Yeah. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I just have a question. I was a teacher too. I retired. I tutor now. When did we get all these woke school board members? Where did they all pop up from, or was this always going on?
Yeah, this has been going on, and there's a whole longer discussion, and one of my colleagues from Nutrient Neighbors, her name is Beth Feely. Beth has done a great job of talking about this. Yeah, she's done a great job of tracking the history, and there's a lot of people who've written about it, but it comes from the 60s. Basically, it's been a movement that's been in the works for a while, and it's just playing out now, so it's a long-term thing. Oh, one more question, please. Yes, sir.
I'm not a parent, but in fact, I'm probably a lot younger than most of you guys, so not to make you guys feel old or anything.
Thank you.
Well, I just want to say I really admire your guys' courage in fighting for your children. So I think everybody deserves a round of applause.
So with that, thank you very much. Wirepoints.org. Please sign up for our newsletter. Oh, John's got a sign-up sheet there, but you can also use that QR code. I'll put it there. And if you ever have any questions, please reach out.